In the cold, windswept expanse of the North Pacific, an often overlooked front of World War II unfolded, one that tested the limits of human endurance and reshaped strategies in the Pacific theater. The Aleutian Islands, a desolate chain of volcanic landforms stretching across the ocean, became the setting for a dramatic confrontation in June 1942. At the same time as the pivotal Battle of Midway, the Japanese launched a bold operation to seize the islands of Attu and Kiska, marking the first time in over a century that American soil had fallen into enemy hands. The Japanese strategy was clear: create a diversion to distract American forces while simultaneously establishing a foothold to control critical northern maritime routes. These waters, frigid and treacherous, were crucial for both military and commercial navigation, linking the Pacific to the Arctic. For the Japanese, the Aleutians represented a strategic prize that could threaten American supply lines and bolster their own defensive perimeter. For the Americans, the islands were a vulnerable weak point that demanded immediate attention. The events that led to this forgotten chapter in the war began with meticulous planning on both sides. Japan, emboldened by early successes in the Pacific, sought to consolidate its gains and protect its northern flank. The Aleutian Campaign was planned in conjunction with their grand assault on Midway, a move that revealed their far-reaching ambitions but also overextended their resources. On the morning of June 3, 1942, Japanese aircraft descended on Dutch Harbor, a critical outpost on the island of Unalaska. The attack, though damaging, was limited in scope as the primary Japanese objective lay further west. Within days, Japanese forces landed unopposed on the islands of Attu and Kiska. The Americans, caught off guard, had left these remote outposts lightly defended, underestimating their importance. For the Japanese, this swift occupation was a moment of triumph, a seemingly easy victory in their Pacific campaign. However, the Aleutian Campaign would prove to be far from straightforward. The island's unforgiving environment was as formidable an enemy as any military force. Battered by icy winds, shrouded in dense fog, and plagued by ceaseless rain, the occupying forces soon discovered the harsh realities of the Aleutians. For American and Japanese soldiers alike, this isolated battlefield became a test of resilience, as they faced not only each other, but also nature's unrelenting assault. As the story of the Aleutians unfolded, it became a tale of strategy, perseverance, and sacrifice. This forgotten front, overshadowed by the epic clashes of Midway and Guadalcanal, quietly shaped the course of the Pacific War. How did this desolate battleground influence the strategies of the world's most powerful militaries? And what lessons can we draw from the Aleutian Campaign today? This is the untold story of the secret battle of the Aleutians, a chapter of World War II that deserves to be remembered for the courage it demanded, the challenges it posed, and the mark it left on history. As dawn broke on June 3, 1942, the stillness of Dutch Harbor on Unalaska Island was shattered by the droning of approaching aircraft. Japanese bombers, flying from carriers stationed hundreds of miles away, descended upon the American outpost in a sudden and ferocious attack. Explosions ripped through the airfields and barracks, sending plumes of smoke into the sky. This assault, the opening act of Japan's Aleutian Campaign, was intended to sow confusion among American forces while drawing their attention away from the primary Japanese target, Midway. The attack on Dutch Harbor marked the first time Alaska's Aleutian Islands became a battleground. The Japanese operation, codenamed AL, was conceived to run parallel to their more ambitious Midway campaign, with the twin goals of creating a diversion and securing strategic outposts in the North Pacific. The Aleutians, a barren, windswept chain of islands stretching from Alaska toward Siberia, had long been regarded as a remote backwater of minimal importance. Yet their position along northern shipping lanes gave them a potential strategic value that neither side could afford to ignore. For the Japanese, the Aleutians were a means to an end. By establishing a foothold on the islands, they hoped to threaten American supply routes and fortify their northern defensive perimeter. The plan also capitalized on the region's harsh environment, which was expected to hinder any American counterattack. Meanwhile, American commanders, preoccupied with events in the Central Pacific, had underestimated the threat to the Aleutians. The garrison stationed there were small, poorly equipped, and unprepared for the onslaught that was to come. On June 7th, Japanese forces landed on the islands of Attu and Kiska, two isolated outposts far to the west of Dutch Harbor. The landings were unopposed, as the American military presence on these islands was minimal. Attu's population consisted of a handful of Aleut villagers and a lone weather station crew. Kiska was similarly unfortified. Within hours, Japanese troops had secured the islands, and the rising sun flag flew over American soil for the first time since the War of 1812. At first glance, the Japanese occupation of Attu and Kiska seemed like a significant victory. However, the reality of the Aleutian Campaign quickly proved far more complicated. The region's notorious weather, characterized by freezing temperatures, dense fog, and relentless winds, posed immense challenges for both sides. Japanese soldiers found themselves battling not only their human enemies, but also the unforgiving elements. Supply lines stretched thin, and isolation began to take its toll on morale. What had seemed like an easy conquest turned into a logistical nightmare. Meanwhile, the attack on Dutch Harbor had revealed significant weaknesses in American defenses. The destruction wrought by the Japanese bombers underscored the vulnerability of the Aleutians and prompted a reevaluation of their strategic importance. While the main focus of the U.S. Navy remained on the decisive battle unfolding at Midway, efforts were underway to respond to the threat in Alaska. Reconnaissance flights and naval patrols increased as the Americans sought to gather intelligence on Japanese movements and prevent further incursions. Despite their initial successes, the Japanese soon discovered the limits of their Aleutian strategy. The island's remote location and inhospitable climate made them difficult to supply and defend. The American military, though caught off guard, had begun to adapt. Aircraft from mainland Alaska conducted bombing raids on Japanese positions, while submarines prowled the frigid waters, intercepting Japanese supply ships. These efforts, though limited at first, demonstrated the growing resolve of the United States to reclaim its territory. The Aleutian Campaign, overshadowed by the dramatic events at Midway, was far from the decisive victory Japan had hoped for. Instead, it became a grueling contest of endurance and attrition, where the environment was as formidable an adversary as the opposing forces. As the months wore on, both sides would come to realize that the battle for the Aleutians was not a sideshow, but a critical front with far-reaching implications for the Pacific War. The Japanese occupation of Attu and Kiska marked a turning point, forcing the Americans to confront the vulnerability of their northern frontier. It also served as a stark reminder of the global nature of the conflict, where even the most remote corners of the world could become battlegrounds. The Aleutian Campaign, born of strategic ambition and miscalculation, set the stage for a brutal struggle that would test the limits of human endurance and reshape the course of the war in the Pacific. The Aleutian Islands were a battlefield like no other, where soldiers confronted not only a determined enemy, but also the relentless forces of nature. The harsh environment of the islands quickly emerged as the campaign's most formidable challenge, shaping every aspect of the conflict and demanding extraordinary resilience from both sides. From the outset, the soldiers stationed on the Aleutians faced conditions that tested their endurance to the breaking point. The islands were battered by ceaseless winds, often exceeding 60 miles per hour, which howled through the desolate landscape and made even the simplest tasks arduous. Temperatures plummeted to sub-zero levels, and snowstorms could sweep in with little warning, reducing visibility to near zero. Dense fog frequently engulfed the islands, grounding aircraft, confusing navigation, and enveloping soldiers in an eerie, oppressive grayness that sapped morale. For the Japanese troops occupying Attu and Kiska, the isolation was palpable. Cut off from reinforcements and resupplied for long periods, they endured weeks of monotony punctuated by bursts of violence. Their makeshift shelters provided scant protection from the elements, and food shortages became a constant concern as the logistical challenges of supplying such a remote garrison mounted. The psychological toll of their isolation was compounded by the environment itself, which seemed to conspire against them at every turn. Frostbite and exposure claimed as many casualties as the enemy did, and diseases like pneumonia spread rapidly through their ranks. American forces fared little better. Tasked with patrolling the islands and preparing for eventual counteroffensives, they struggled to adapt to the Aleutians' unique demands. Navigation proved particularly perilous. The island's rocky shores and unpredictable weather led to frequent shipwrecks. Pilots, accustomed to flying in clear skies, found themselves battling gale-force winds and dodging mountains shrouded in fog. The Aleutian skies became a deadly theater of their own, where the weather was as much an adversary as the enemy aircraft that lurked above. Despite these conditions, the Japanese made concerted efforts to fortify their positions on Attu and Kiska. They dug defensive trenches into the frozen soil, built bunkers from salvaged materials, and camouflaged their artillery to blend seamlessly into the barren landscape. These preparations would later force American forces to confront a well-entrenched enemy in some of the most grueling battles of the Pacific War. The Americans, meanwhile, faced the daunting task of not only driving the Japanese from the islands, but also maintaining their own foothold in the Aleutians. Supply ships braved treacherous seas to deliver food, ammunition, and medical supplies to forward bases like Dutch Harbor. Engineers worked tirelessly to construct airstrips capable of withstanding the elements, ensuring that American aircraft could operate despite the weather. The effort required a level of ingenuity and perseverance that rivaled the ingenuity demanded by more famous campaigns, like those in the South Pacific. The natural environment also shaped the tactics employed by both sides. For the Japanese, the rugged terrain and constant fog offered opportunities for ambushes and hit-and-run attacks. Their knowledge of the terrain allowed them to exploit natural choke points and harass American forces at will. For the Americans, the challenges of coordinating large-scale operations in such conditions necessitated creative solutions. They relied heavily on reconnaissance flights to locate enemy positions and develop innovative techniques for deploying troops and equipment under cover of poor visibility. The toll of the environment extended beyond the battlefield. Soldiers on both sides endured long stretches of boredom and inactivity, interspersed with moments of sheer terror. Letters home often described the Aleutians as a hell on earth, a place where the enemy seemed almost secondary to the unrelenting cold, wind, and isolation. For many, the Aleutian Campaign became a battle of willpower as much as firepower. Despite the difficulties, the Aleutian Campaign revealed the resilience of the human spirit in the face of adversity. Both Japanese and American forces demonstrated remarkable ingenuity and determination, finding ways to adapt to an environment that seemed determined to defeat them. The lessons learned on the Aleutians about the importance of logistics, the unpredictability of nature, and the value of perseverance would resonate throughout the remainder of the war. As the conflict on the Aleutians wore on, it became clear that the island's environment was not merely a backdrop to the fighting, but a decisive factor in the campaign's outcome. It shaped strategies, dictated tactics, and tested the mettle of every soldier who fought there. The Aleutians were a proving ground for the resolve and ingenuity that would ultimately define the Allied war effort in the Pacific. This brutal theater of war, though often overshadowed, stands as a testament to the resilience and resourcefulness of those who endured its many trials. By mid-1942, the defeat of the Japanese at Midway had turned the tide in the Pacific, but the Aleutian Islands, still under Japanese control, presented an ongoing strategic challenge. American military leaders, emboldened by their success, began planning a counteroffensive to reclaim Attu and Kiska. The operation would test not only their tactical acumen, but also their ability to adapt to one of the most inhospitable battlefields of the war. The man at the helm of the Pacific counteroffensive was Admiral Chester W. Nimitz, whose leadership had been instrumental in the Midway victory. Known for his measured yet decisive approach, Nimitz was tasked with coordinating an effort that spanned thousands of miles of treacherous waters and unpredictable skies. His strategy emphasized air superiority and meticulous planning, recognizing that the harsh environment of the Aleutians would be as much an enemy as the Japanese themselves. The first phase of the American response involved establishing air dominance over the region. To this end, long-range bombers and reconnaissance planes began regular patrols, identifying Japanese positions and launching strikes against supply depots and fortifications. The island of Adak, strategically located closer to the Japanese-held islands, became a critical forward base. American engineers, braving freezing temperatures and relentless winds, constructed an airfield on Adak in record time, providing a launch point for sustained air campaigns. These aerial operations were crucial not only for disrupting Japanese logistics, but also for gathering intelligence. Photo reconnaissance missions, often conducted at perilous altitudes to avoid enemy fire, revealed the extent of Japanese fortifications on Attu and Kiska. On Attu, the Japanese had fortified key high ground, creating a network of trenches and bunkers that blended seamlessly with the rugged terrain. Kiska, though equally fortified, presented an additional challenge due to the persistent fog that obscured enemy movements. By early 1943, the stage was set for a direct assault on the Aleutians. The operation to retake Attu, codenamed Operation Landcrab, commenced in May. It was the first amphibious landing by American forces since Guadalcanal, and the lessons learned there were put to the test. The invasion force, composed of the 7th Infantry Division, encountered immediate resistance as they hit the beaches. Japanese defenders, though outnumbered, used the terrain to their advantage, launching ambushes from concealed positions and retreating to higher ground. The battle for Attu quickly devolved into a brutal, close-quarters fight. The mountainous terrain, covered in ice and snow, forced American troops to scale steep ridges under constant fire. Artillery proved difficult to deploy effectively, as the weather often rendered it inoperable. Soldiers faced not only the enemy but also frostbite, trench foot, and exhaustion. Supplies were slow to arrive, and the lack of cover left troops vulnerable to both enemy fire and the elements. Despite these challenges, American forces pressed forward. Their advance was marked by tenacity and ingenuity, with engineers constructing makeshift bridges and pathways to traverse the rugged landscape. Naval support, though hampered by weather, provided critical firepower, bombarding Japanese positions and clearing paths for ground troops. Air cover from Adak further disrupted Japanese defenses, though poor visibility often limited its effectiveness. The turning point in the battle for Attu came with the capture of a key ridgeline known as the Engineer Hill. This position, heavily fortified by the Japanese, commanded a strategic view of the surrounding terrain. American forces launched a coordinated assault, employing a combination of infantry, artillery, and airstrikes. After days of intense fighting, the hill was secured, breaking the backbone of Japanese resistance. In the final days of the battle, the Japanese defenders, recognizing the futility of their situation, launched a desperate banzai charge. This tactic, characterized by a frenzied all-out assault, aimed to inflict maximum casualties before surrendering. The charge, though fierce, was ultimately repelled, and the remaining Japanese forces were either captured or killed. The victory on Attu came at a high cost, with over 500 American soldiers killed and thousands more wounded or incapacitated by the environment. The recapture of Attu marked a significant milestone in the Aleutian Campaign, but it was only the beginning. The focus now shifted to Kiska, where the Japanese presence remained a threat. Preparations for the assault on Kiska began immediately, with American forces determined to apply the lessons learned on Attu. The battle for the Aleutians, far from over, would continue to challenge the resilience and ingenuity of those who fought there. This chapter in the Aleutian Campaign demonstrated the complexities of waging war in one of the most remote and unforgiving regions on Earth. It was a testament to the determination of the Allied forces and a reminder of the sacrifices made in the name of reclaiming lost ground. The lessons of Attu would resonate throughout the Pacific War, shaping strategies and tactics for the battles to come. The victory at Attu was a hard-fought triumph, But the campaign to reclaim the Aleutian Islands was not yet over. Attention turned to Kiska, the final stronghold of Japanese forces in the region. Kiska had been heavily fortified over the course of the occupation, with its garrison of nearly 5,000 troops bolstered by well-concealed artillery emplacements, underground bunkers, and a web of defensive trenches. To dislodge the Japanese from this isolated yet critical island would require a coordinated effort of unprecedented scale, combining naval firepower, aerial bombardment, and a massive amphibious assault. In the weeks following the Battle of Attu, American forces worked tirelessly to prepare for the assault on Kiska. The lessons learned during the grueling fight on Attu informed every aspect of the operation. Commanders took careful note of the challenges posed by the Aleutian environment, particularly the impact of fog and unpredictable weather on visibility and coordination. The success of the operation would hinge on overcoming these obstacles and leveraging the full might of the Allied forces. The operation to retake Kiska, codenamed Operation Cottage, was planned for August 1943. It involved a joint effort between American and Canadian forces, marking a significant moment of cooperation between the two nations. The Royal Canadian Navy and Army played a crucial role in the operation, contributing warships, troops, and logistical support. This collaboration underscored the importance of Allied unity in the face of shared challenges. The build-up to the assault was characterized by an intense aerial campaign aimed at softening Japanese defenses. Bombing raids from American air bases on Adak and Amchitka pummeled Kiska's fortifications day and night, targeting gun emplacements, supply depots, and troop concentrations. The unrelenting bombardment not only inflicted significant damage, but also disrupted Japanese supply lines, leaving the garrison increasingly isolated and vulnerable. Unbeknownst to the Allies, however, the Japanese had made a daring decision to evacuate Kiska before the assault could begin. Recognizing the futility of defending the island against an overwhelming force, Japanese commanders devised an intricate plan to withdraw their troops under the cover of darkness and fog. In July 1943, using submarines and destroyers, the Japanese successfully evacuated their entire garrison, leaving behind only abandoned equipment, booby traps, and mines. When the Allied invasion force landed on Kiska in August, they encountered an eerie silence. Expecting fierce resistance, the troops advanced cautiously, navigating through thick fog and treacherous terrain. Every shadow and sound was scrutinized, as soldiers feared ambushes from an unseen enemy. The tension was palpable, and mistakes were inevitable. Tragically, incidents of friendly fire resulted in the loss of Allied lives, a somber reminder of the confusion that often accompanies war. Despite the lack of resistance, Kiska was far from safe. The island was littered with hidden dangers, from mines to explosive traps, left behind by the departing Japanese. Clearing these hazards required painstaking effort and claimed additional casualties among the Allied forces. The discovery of empty bunkers and abandoned fortifications confirmed what many had begun to suspect. The Japanese had vanished. The evacuation of Kiska was both a tactical victory for Japan and a stark lesson for the Allies. It underscored the adaptability and resourcefulness of the Japanese military, even in the face of overwhelming odds. For the Allies, the operation highlighted the importance of intelligence and the need for vigilance in an environment where the unexpected was the norm. The capture of Kiska marked the end of the Aleutian Campaign, bringing the islands back under Allied control. While the campaign did not involve the large-scale battles that characterized other theaters of the war, its significance should not be underestimated. The Aleutians had tested the limits of Allied coordination, innovation, and perseverance, providing invaluable experience for future operations in the Pacific. The operation also solidified the bond between American and Canadian forces, showcasing the strength of their partnership in a time of global conflict. Together, they had overcome immense challenges to achieve a shared goal, paving the way for continued collaboration in the war effort. With the Aleutian Islands secured, the Allies could turn their attention to the broader Pacific theater, where the lessons of the Aleutian Campaign would inform their strategies and tactics. The battle for the Aleutians though often overlooked, was a testament to the resilience and determination of those who fought in one of the war's most challenging environments. It was a victory not only over an enemy, but also over the unforgiving forces of nature, a triumph that would resonate long after the guns fell silent. The conclusion of the Aleutian Campaign in August 1943 marked a turning point in the Allies' efforts to secure the Northern Pacific. With Attu and Kiska reclaimed, the strategic and political implications of this hard-fought victory began to take shape. The campaign's lessons resonated far beyond the icy landscapes of the Aleutians, influencing both military strategies and diplomatic relations in the broader context of the Second World War. The Allied control of the Aleutians provided a critical defensive buffer for North America. These islands, once considered remote and expendable, were transformed into vital outposts that safeguarded the northern approaches to the continental United States and Canada. By denying Japan a foothold in the region, the Allies effectively neutralized the threat of further incursions through the North Pacific, securing a key maritime route that would be essential for future operations. The campaign also served as a proving ground for amphibious warfare. The logistical and tactical challenges faced in the Aleutians foreshadowed the complexities of larger operations to come, such as the island-hopping campaigns in the Central and Southern Pacific. The lessons learned in the Aleutians, ranging from the importance of inter-service coordination to the necessity of rapid airfield construction, were invaluable in preparing the Allies for battles like Tarawa, Saipan, and Iwo Jima. Canada's role in the campaign highlighted the importance of multinational cooperation. Canadian forces played a pivotal part in the liberation of Kiska, contributing troops, ships, and logistical expertise. This collaboration not only strengthened the Allied effort in the Aleutians, but also reinforced the partnership between Canada and the United States. The campaign demonstrated how closely coordinated operations between nations could amplify their combined strength, a principle that would underpin future Allied victories. For Japan, the loss of the Aleutians exposed a critical vulnerability in their northern defenses. The campaign revealed that the Japanese military's resources were stretched thin, and their ability to sustain extended operations in isolated regions was severely limited. The evacuation of Kiska, though tactically successful, underscored Japan's waning capacity to maintain its far-flung empire in the face of mounting Allied pressure. Despite its strategic significance, the Aleutian Campaign has often been overshadowed by more dramatic battles in the Pacific theater. Yet the campaign's impact on the course of the war cannot be overstated. The reclamation of the Aleutians bolstered Allied morale and demonstrated their resolve to challenge Japanese aggression on every front, no matter how remote or inhospitable. In addition to its military importance, the campaign left a lasting legacy on those who fought there. The soldiers, sailors, and airmen who endured the brutal conditions of the Aleutians displayed remarkable resilience and determination. Their experiences in this harsh and unforgiving environment forged bonds of camaraderie and shaped their understanding of what it meant to serve in the most extreme circumstances. The Aleutian Campaign also had profound implications for the indigenous Aleut population. Many were forcibly evacuated and relocated during the conflict, enduring significant hardship and loss. Their displacement highlighted the often overlooked human cost of war, a legacy that continues to resonate in discussions of the Aleutian Islands' role in history. As the Allies reflected on the campaign, they recognized its broader implications for the conduct of war in the Pacific. The Aleutians had tested their ability to adapt to unfamiliar and hostile environments, to integrate diverse forces into a cohesive effort, and to persevere in the face of immense challenges. These lessons would prove critical as the Allies advanced deeper into the Pacific, confronting an increasingly desperate and determined enemy. The conclusion of the Aleutian Campaign was not merely the end of a battle, but the beginning of a new phase in the Pacific War. It demonstrated the interconnectedness of global conflict, where even the most remote and overlooked theaters could have profound consequences for the outcome of the war. The sacrifices made in the Aleutians, both by the soldiers who fought there and the civilians who were displaced, serve as a stark reminder of the human cost of victory. With the Northern Pacific secured, the Allies could shift their focus to the Central and Southern Pacific, where the tide of war was beginning to turn decisively in their favor. The lessons of the Aleutians, of resilience, adaptation, and collaboration, would continue to guide their efforts, shaping the strategies and tactics that would ultimately lead to victory in the Pacific. The Aleutian Campaign is a stark reminder of the enduring cost of war, not only in terms of military strategy, but also in the deeply human stories of heroism and tragedy. For the soldiers, pilots, and sailors who endured its brutal conditions, and for the indigenous Aleuts who were forcibly removed from their ancestral lands, the scars left by this campaign remain etched in memory. The untold personal sacrifices, coupled with the lessons drawn from this arduous chapter of World War II, serve as a powerful testament to the resilience and determination that define this often overlooked battlefront. The unrelenting environment of the Aleutian Islands demanded extraordinary perseverance from those stationed there. Soldiers on both sides grappled not only with the enemy, but also with the inhospitable climate. Temperatures plummeted, storms were relentless, and dense fog shrouded the islands, making navigation perilous and communication unreliable. The weather often determined the course of operations, grounding aircraft and stranding troops in isolation. Many soldiers succumbed not to enemy fire but to frostbite, disease, and the sheer psychological toll of surviving in such conditions. Against this backdrop of adversity, countless acts of bravery unfolded. Pilots braved blinding fog and violent winds to carry out reconnaissance missions, aware that a single mistake could send their aircraft plunging into the icy waters below. Ground troops waded through marshes and trudged over rugged terrain, advancing inch by inch against an entrenched and determined enemy. Stories of soldiers rescuing comrades under fire, engineers constructing vital infrastructure in record time, and medics tending to the wounded with limited resources highlight the profound human spirit that thrived even in the harshest conditions. Leadership played a pivotal role in navigating the challenges of the Aleutian Campaign. Admirals Chester Nimitz and Ernest King demonstrated strategic acumen, ensuring that the campaign aligned with broader Allied objectives in the Pacific. Their decisions, including the deployment of air and naval assets and the timing of ground offensives, underscored their ability to adapt to the unique demands of the Northern Pacific Theater. Meanwhile, junior officers and non-commissioned leaders on the ground often shouldered immense responsibility, making split-second decisions that could mean the difference between victory and disaster. The indigenous Aleut population faced profound upheaval during the campaign. Deemed a security risk by the U.S. government, they were forcibly evacuated from their homes and relocated to internment camps in southeast Alaska. These camps, hastily constructed and poorly supplied, offered little protection from the elements. Many Aleuts suffered from malnutrition, disease, and the emotional trauma of displacement. Their villages, left unattended, were often destroyed by weather or military occupation, leaving them with little to return to after the war. Despite their hardships, the Aleuts contributed to the war effort in significant ways. Some served as scouts and guides for Allied forces, leveraging their intimate knowledge of the islands to aid military operations. Others provided critical labor and support services, bridging the gap between military and civilian spheres. Their resilience and contributions stand as a testament to their strength and resourcefulness. The aftermath of the campaign saw the gradual return of surviving Aleuts to their ancestral lands, but the scars of displacement and loss lingered. Efforts to rebuild communities and restore cultural practices were hampered by the lack of resources and government support. The Aleut experience during the war remains a poignant reminder of the collateral damage inflicted on indigenous populations in the name of national security. For the veterans who served in the Aleutian Campaign, recognition and remembrance have often been elusive. Unlike the iconic battles of the Pacific Theater, the Aleutians received little attention in post-war narratives. Many who fought there felt their sacrifices had been overshadowed by the more dramatic and well-publicized campaigns of the war. Veterans groups and historians have worked tirelessly to ensure that their stories are not forgotten, advocating for greater awareness and acknowledgement of their contributions. The Aleutian Campaign also left an enduring legacy in the lessons it imparted to military strategists. The challenges of coordinating air, sea, and land forces in such a remote and unforgiving environment underscored the importance of flexibility, innovation, and resilience. These lessons would prove invaluable in subsequent operations, from the island-hopping campaigns in the Pacific to the amphibious landings in Europe. The campaign demonstrated the critical role of logistics, the need for inter-service collaboration, and the value of perseverance in overcoming seemingly insurmountable obstacles. In commemorating the Aleutian Campaign, it is vital to honor not only the strategic achievements, but also the personal sacrifices and stories of those who lived through it. Their courage and determination, forged in the face of overwhelming adversity, serve as a poignant reminder of the human cost of war. By remembering their experiences and preserving their stories, we ensure that this forgotten chapter of World War II continues to inspire future generations. The Aleutian Campaign is often overshadowed by the more renowned battles of World War II, but its strategic implications and the profound lessons it imparted should not be underestimated. The campaign underscored the necessity of perseverance, the unpredictability of war, and the human capacity for adaptation in the face of extreme adversity. The reconquest of the Aleutian Islands, particularly the liberation of Kiska, marked a turning point in Allied control of the North Pacific. Despite the relative ease of reclaiming Kiska due to the Japanese evacuation, the operation was fraught with risks and underscored the enduring challenges of the Aleutian theater. Mines, booby traps, and the ever-present harsh weather claimed lives even in the absence of direct combat. These losses highlighted the unpredictable nature of the battlefield, where nature itself became a formidable adversary. Strategically, the campaign served as a proving ground for future operations. The logistical complexities of supplying and coordinating forces in such an isolated and inhospitable region provided invaluable insights for later Pacific campaigns. Amphibious operations, air support integration, and inter-allied coordination were tested and refined in the Aleutians, laying the groundwork for subsequent successes in the Pacific theater. The importance of robust supply lines and adaptable strategies became evident, shaping the planning and execution of campaigns in the Solomon Islands, the Philippines, and beyond. One of the most enduring lessons from the Aleutian Campaign was the critical role of intelligence. The successful evacuation of Kiska by Japanese forces prior to the Allied invasion was a stark reminder of the consequences of incomplete intelligence. Despite intense surveillance and reconnaissance efforts, the Allies were unaware that the island had been abandoned, leading to unnecessary casualties from friendly fire and environmental hazards. This experience underscored the necessity of accurate and timely intelligence in modern warfare and prompted improvements in reconnaissance techniques and inter-allied information sharing. The campaign also highlighted the significance of coalition warfare. Canadian forces played a pivotal role in the Aleutian operations, providing ground troops logistical support and valuable expertise. The participation of Canadian troops not only strengthened the Allied effort, but also demonstrated the importance of multinational collaboration in achieving shared objectives. This partnership set a precedent for future Allied operations and reinforced the notion that unity and cooperation were essential for victory. From a geopolitical perspective, the Aleutian Campaign reshaped the strategic calculus of the Pacific War. The recapture of the islands denied Japan a potential springboard for attacks on the North American mainland and safeguarded the northern flank of the United States. It also bolstered the morale of Allied forces, proving that even the most remote and challenging territories could be reclaimed through determination and coordination. For Japan, the loss of the Aleutians signaled the vulnerability of their northern defenses and foreshadowed the eventual unraveling of their Pacific strategy. On a human level, the campaign left an indelible mark on those who lived through it. Soldiers who fought in the Aleutians endured not only the physical challenges of combat, but also the psychological strain of isolation and relentless environmental hardship. Many veterans carried the scars of their experiences long after the war ended. Their sacrifices largely unrecognized by a world captivated by more dramatic theaters of conflict. Efforts to honor these soldiers and preserve their stories have grown in recent years, driven by a desire to ensure that their contributions are not forgotten. The Aleutian Campaign also had lasting implications for the indigenous Aleut population. The forced evacuation and internment of Aleut communities during the war disrupted traditional ways of life and inflicted profound suffering. The return to their ancestral lands after the conflict was fraught with challenges, as many villages had been destroyed or rendered uninhabitable. Despite these hardships, the resilience of the Aleut people has been a testament to their enduring connection to their homeland and their determination to preserve their cultural heritage. The Aleutian Campaign serves as a poignant reminder of the multifaceted nature of war. It was a campaign of contradictions, a remote and forgotten front that nonetheless held strategic significance, a theater where nature proved as deadly as the enemy, a battleground that forged lessons for future victories while leaving deep scars on those who endured it. By reflecting on the Aleutian Campaign, we not only honor the sacrifices of those who served, but also draw valuable insights into the enduring challenges of warfare and the resilience of the human spirit. In the aftermath of the Aleutian Campaign, the lessons learned and sacrifices made by those who endured its challenges were integral to shaping the broader strategies of World War II. Yet, for decades, the significance of this remote and often overlooked theater remained overshadowed by the grander battles of the Pacific and European fronts. The Aleutians were both a proving ground and a crucible of endurance. The harsh conditions tested not only the physical resilience of the soldiers, but also the strategic flexibility of their commanders. One of the enduring legacies of the campaign was its demonstration of the importance of logistics in modern warfare. The American supply chain faced unprecedented challenges in ensuring the delivery of food, munitions, and medical supplies across the inhospitable North Pacific. This logistical endeavor, although fraught with delays and missteps, ultimately contributed to the refinement of supply operations, which would later prove critical in the amphibious campaigns of the Central and South Pacific. The campaign's strategic outcomes resonated far beyond the barren landscapes of the Aleutians. For Japan, the loss of the islands represented not just a territorial setback, but a significant psychological blow. The Aleutians had been intended as a defensive barrier and a potential launchpad for future operations against the mainland United States. Their recapture by the Allies demonstrated the vulnerability of Japanese forces to sustained and coordinated counterattacks, a reality that would later play out on a much larger scale in the island-hopping campaigns of the Pacific. For the Allies, the Aleutian Campaign underscored the value of inter-allied cooperation. Canadian forces, though often overlooked in accounts of the campaign, played a vital role in the planning and execution of the operations. Their contributions ranged from providing troops for the invasions to aiding in the construction and maintenance of airstrips and supply depots. This cooperation served as an early example of the kind of multinational military efforts that would later characterize the D-Day invasion and other Allied operations in Europe and the Pacific. Moreover, the experience gained in the Aleutians proved invaluable in shaping the strategies and tactics of the Pacific theater. The emphasis on air superiority, the coordination of naval and ground forces, and the integration of reconnaissance and intelligence into operational planning were all honed during the campaign. These lessons informed subsequent operations, from the invasion of the Gilbert and Marshall Islands to the complex assault on Okinawa. The human dimension of the Aleutian Campaign is perhaps its most poignant legacy. Soldiers who fought in the campaign often spoke of the unique camaraderie forged by the shared hardships of the environment. The isolation, unrelenting weather, and constant threat of enemy action created a bond among the men that transcended national and cultural boundaries. At the same time, the psychological toll of the campaign was profound. Many veterans struggled with the lingering effects of their experiences, from the physical scars of frostbite and injury to the emotional weight of loss and survival. The campaign also had a lasting impact on the Aleut people, whose lives were irreversibly altered by the war. The forced relocation of Aleut communities during the conflict resulted in significant disruptions to their traditional way of life. Many were unable to return to their homes after the war, as entire villages had been destroyed or rendered uninhabitable. Efforts to recognize and address the injustices faced by the Aleut people have been slow, but are an essential part of the campaign's legacy. In the decades following the war, the Aleutian Campaign faded into obscurity, a footnote in the grand narrative of World War II. The remote location of the islands, coupled with the relatively small scale of the battles compared to other theaters, contributed to this neglect. However, efforts to preserve the history of the campaign have gained momentum in recent years. Veterans organizations, historical societies, and the descendants of those who served have worked tirelessly to ensure that the sacrifices and achievements of the Aleutian Campaign are remembered. The campaign's importance lies not only in its direct impact on the course of the war, but also in the lessons it provides for future generations. The challenges faced and overcome in the Aleutians offer timeless insights into the nature of warfare, the resilience of the human spirit, and the enduring importance of unity and cooperation in the pursuit of a common goal. As we reflect on the Aleutian Campaign, it becomes clear that its story is one of both hardship and triumph. The frozen battlefields of the Aleutians may seem distant and unconnected to the broader sweep of history, but they are a reminder that every front, no matter how remote or overlooked, plays a role in shaping the outcome of conflict. By honoring the legacy of the Aleutian Campaign, we not only pay tribute to those who serve, but also ensure that their sacrifices continue to inform and inspire future generations. The Aleutian Islands campaign serves as a vivid illustration of how human fortitude, coupled with strategic ingenuity, can overcome even the most formidable challenges of nature and warfare. Yet, the broader historical narrative often overlooks the sacrifices and heroism displayed during this unique chapter of World War II. One of the most striking aspects of the campaign was the complex and innovative tactics employed by both sides. The terrain of the Aleutians demanded unprecedented levels of adaptability. For the Japanese forces, their strategy of fortification and resource conservation on the islands of Kiska and Attu showcased their ability to operate in near-total isolation. Their fortifications were designed not just to repel attacks, but also to withstand the brutal elements. Underground bunkers, camouflage artillery positions, and elaborate tunnel systems made their defensive positions exceedingly difficult to locate and neutralize. These fortifications, combined with the natural terrain, turned the islands into nearly impenetrable strongholds. For the American forces, overcoming these obstacles required bold innovation. The use of coordinated aerial bombardments, naval blockades, and ground assaults represented a shift towards combined arms operations that would later become a hallmark of Allied strategy. Aerial reconnaissance played a crucial role in mapping Japanese positions, even though the thick fog and unpredictable weather often rendered these missions perilous. The introduction of radar technology in the Aleutians was also a game-changer, providing American forces with an edge in detecting enemy movements and navigating treacherous waters. The campaign also underscored the critical role of logistics in warfare. Establishing and maintaining supply lines to the remote and inhospitable Aleutian Islands was a monumental task. The U.S. Navy and Merchant Marine faced relentless challenges in transporting troops, equipment, and provisions across the stormy North Pacific. The constant threat of Japanese submarines, combined with the region's unpredictable weather, made every supply convoy a high-stakes operation. These logistical efforts not only ensured the survival of American forces on the islands, but also set the stage for the eventual liberation of Attu and Kiska. One of the most dramatic moments of the campaign came during the final days of the Battle of Attu. The Japanese forces, recognizing that their position was untenable, launched a desperate and ferocious banzai charge. This assault, one of the largest of its kind during the Pacific War, epitomized the unyielding resolve of the Japanese military ethos. Although ultimately unsuccessful, the charge inflicted significant casualties on the American forces and left an indelible mark on those who witnessed it. The aftermath of the battle revealed the full cost of the campaign, with the rugged tundra of Attu strewn with the bodies of soldiers from both sides. The liberation of Kiska, in contrast, was marked by an eerie absence of resistance. The Japanese forces, having anticipated the overwhelming power of the Allied assault, executed a masterful evacuation under the cover of darkness and fog. This strategic withdrawal was a testament to the Japanese Navy's skill and resourcefulness, leaving the Allied forces to confront an island booby-trapped with mines and abandoned defenses. Despite the lack of direct combat, the operation resulted in numerous casualties due to friendly fire and accidents, a somber reminder of the perils inherent in warfare. As the Aleutian Campaign drew to a close, its strategic and political implications began to take shape. For the United States, the recapture of the islands reaffirmed its dominance in the North Pacific and denied Japan a critical foothold for potential future operations. It also demonstrated the resilience and determination of American forces, providing a morale boost at a critical juncture in the war. For Japan, the loss of the Aleutians marked a turning point, forcing a reevaluation of its defensive strategy and exposing the vulnerability of its northern territories. The campaign also highlighted the importance of Allied cooperation. Canadian forces, though often overshadowed in accounts of the campaign, made significant contributions to the liberation of the Aleutians. Their role in the construction of airfields, the provision of logistical support, and participation in combat operations underscored the value of multinational collaboration. This partnership between the United States and Canada set a precedent for future joint operations and reflected the shared commitment of both nations to the Allied cause. Perhaps the most enduring legacy of the Aleutian Campaign lies in the stories of the individuals who served there. The soldiers, sailors, and airmen who endured the campaign faced a unique combination of challenges, from the harsh environment to the relentless pressure of combat. Their courage and perseverance in the face of adversity stand as a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. The sacrifices of the Aleutian Campaign veterans, many of whom returned home with physical and emotional scars, deserve recognition and remembrance. The Aleutian Islands, once a forgotten front in the Pacific War, now serve as a powerful reminder of the complexities and costs of conflict. The campaign's lessons, both strategic and human, continue to resonate, offering insights into the nature of warfare and the enduring importance of unity and cooperation in the pursuit of peace. The Aleutian Campaign's conclusion did not mark the end of its impact, but rather the beginning of its broader implications for strategy, diplomacy, and military doctrine in the Pacific War. The retaking of Attu and Kiska had significant strategic and political consequences, reinforcing Allied dominance and shaping the direction of future operations in the theater. The recapture of the Aleutians not only denied Japan a foothold in North America, but also redefined the Northern Pacific as a secure flank for Allied forces. This achievement was not merely symbolic. It provided a vital psychological boost for the Allies, proving that they could reclaim territories even under the harshest conditions. Strategically, the campaign underscored the importance of securing every avenue of approach, no matter how remote or ostensibly insignificant, as each point on the map contributed to the overall integrity of the Pacific theater. One critical outcome was the shift in Japan's strategic focus. Having lost the Aleutians, the Imperial Japanese Navy redirected resources and attention toward fortifying its Central Pacific holdings. This reallocation revealed a growing recognition of Japan's vulnerability, particularly in its northern territories, where logistical challenges and overstretched supply lines made sustained operations increasingly difficult. The Aleutians had been a gambit that Japan could ill afford, and their loss served as a sobering reminder of the limitations of their expansive ambitions. For the United States and its allies, the Aleutian Campaign served as a proving ground for amphibious warfare and joint operations. The logistical complexity of supplying and coordinating forces across vast distances laid the groundwork for future campaigns in the Pacific, such as those in the Marshall Islands and the Marianas. Lessons learned in the Aleutians were directly applied to these operations, particularly in the realms of logistics, weather adaptation, and the integration of air, sea, and land forces. The role of Canada in the campaign was another significant, albeit often overlooked, element of Allied cooperation. Canadian forces contributed substantially to the logistical backbone of the operation, constructing airfields and providing critical reconnaissance and support. The Canadian Navy also played a pivotal role in escorting convoys and maintaining supply lines. This collaboration between the United States and Canada exemplified the spirit of multinational partnership that would become a hallmark of the Allied effort in World War II. It also reinforced the strategic unity of North America in the face of external threats, strengthening ties that would persist well beyond the war. The campaign's political impact extended beyond the immediate wartime context. The success of the Aleutian operations demonstrated the effectiveness of coalition warfare, setting a precedent for post-war military alliances such as NATO. It also highlighted the importance of maintaining a credible presence in the Pacific, a lesson that would influence American defense policy for decades. The Aleutians became a tangible reminder of the need for vigilance and preparedness in even the most remote corners of the globe. Despite its strategic success, the campaign was not without its controversies and challenges. The displacement of the indigenous Aleut population was a dark chapter, as thousands of Aleuts were forcibly relocated to internment camps in Alaska, where they endured deplorable living conditions. Their ancestral homes were devastated by the conflict, and many never returned to their islands. This episode remains a poignant reminder of the human cost of war, particularly for those caught in its crossfire. Efforts to recognize and address these injustices have continued into the modern era, but the scars of displacement and cultural loss remain deeply felt. From a technological perspective, the Aleutian Campaign highlighted the critical role of innovation in overcoming adversity. The development and deployment of radar systems proved invaluable, enabling Allied forces to navigate treacherous waters and counter Japanese air raids effectively. Similarly, advances in cold-weather gear and equipment allowed troops to endure the harsh climate, albeit with significant difficulty. These innovations, born out of necessity, would have lasting implications for military operations in extreme environments. The campaign also reshaped perceptions of the Pacific theater. Before the Aleutians, the Northern Pacific was often regarded as a peripheral zone, far removed from the main axis of the war. The campaign demonstrated that no region was immune to the strategic imperatives of global conflict. It forced military planners to adopt a more holistic view of the Pacific, recognizing the interconnectedness of its various fronts and the need for a comprehensive approach to its defense and liberation. In retrospect, the Aleutian Campaign can be seen as a microcosm of the broader war effort, a testament to the resilience, ingenuity, and sacrifice of those who fought on its unforgiving frontiers. It was a battle not just against an enemy, but also against nature itself, a struggle that demanded the utmost from every soldier, sailor, and airman involved. The campaign's legacy endures in the lessons it imparted and the lives it touched, both on the battlefield and beyond. As the world moved on from the horrors of World War II, the Aleutians receded into the background of historical memory, overshadowed by the grander narratives of the European and Pacific theaters. Yet, their story remains a vital chapter in the annals of the war, a reminder of the complexities and consequences of global conflict. The Aleutian Campaign was not merely a forgotten battle, but a crucible of courage and determination, one that continues to inspire and inform our understanding of history and humanity. The Aleutian Campaign left an indelible mark on its participants, not just as a military operation, but as a crucible of human resilience, tragedy, and heroism. It was fought in one of the most inhospitable environments on Earth, where every step forward demanded extraordinary effort and sacrifice. Amid the fog of war and nature's unyielding hostility, the individuals who endured this remote front displayed courage and fortitude that transcended the conflict itself. For many soldiers, the Aleutians were an introduction to a battlefront unlike any other. Men who had trained in the warm climates of California or the southern United States found themselves thrust into a starkly different world, one defined by biting winds, perpetual dampness, and terrain so treacherous it seemed to conspire against them. The psychological toll of this alien environment was immense. Prolonged exposure to such conditions led to what soldiers often referred to as the Aleutian stare, a vacant expression born of exhaustion, isolation, and unrelenting stress. Within this harsh theater, countless acts of bravery emerged. Among the most notable were the reconnaissance pilots, who flew perilous missions through dense fog and unpredictable winds. Their role was vital in identifying Japanese positions and guiding naval artillery. These missions often ended in tragedy, as the unforgiving weather claimed aircraft and lives alike. The pilots knew the risks, yet they pressed on, driven by duty and the understanding that their comrades on the ground depended on their success. Admiral Chester Nimitz's leadership was a cornerstone of the campaign's eventual success. Known for his methodical and composed approach, Nimitz demonstrated remarkable strategic insight in coordinating the diverse elements of the campaign. He emphasized adaptability and innovation, urging his commanders to find creative solutions to the unprecedented challenges they faced. This ethos permeated the ranks, fostering a spirit of ingenuity that became a hallmark of the Aleutian effort. While the focus often rested on the actions of military leaders and units, the contributions of indigenous Aleuts should not be overlooked. Despite being forcibly relocated from their homes, many Aleuts provided invaluable support as guides and laborers. Their intimate knowledge of the island's geography proved essential for navigating the rugged terrain. However, their displacement and the destruction of their communities remain a somber chapter in the campaign's history, underscoring the collateral human costs of war. The Aleutian Campaign also provided a stage for extraordinary examples of camaraderie and sacrifice. One particularly poignant story is that of Private First Class Harry Kaminsky, who risked his life to carry a wounded comrade to safety under heavy fire. Kaminsky's actions, though emblematic of the selflessness displayed by countless others, highlight the profound bonds forged in the crucible of combat. These acts of valor often went unheralded, overshadowed by the larger narrative of the war. The role of nurses and medical personnel in the campaign further illustrates the heroism that extended beyond the battlefield. Tasked with treating injuries exacerbated by the harsh climate and limited resources, these individuals worked tirelessly, often under fire, to save lives. The Aleutians presented unique medical challenges, including frostbite, trench foot, and respiratory illnesses. The innovation and determination of these caregivers not only alleviated suffering, but also set new standards for battlefield medicine. Among the many legacies of the Aleutian Campaign is the story of its survivors, whose lives were forever shaped by their experiences. Veterans of the campaign often spoke of the isolation and the sense of fighting an unseen enemy, both in the Japanese forces who used guerrilla tactics and in the ever-present forces of nature. For those who returned home, the memories of the Aleutians lingered as a testament to their endurance and a reminder of the costs of war. The campaign also left a cultural imprint on the military. The emphasis on adaptability and resilience became guiding principles for future operations. The Aleutians taught commanders the value of detailed preparation and the necessity of improvisation in the face of unexpected challenges. These lessons resonated through subsequent campaigns in the Pacific, where similarly complex environments demanded comparable ingenuity. Despite its many stories of heroism, the Aleutian Campaign is also a story of tragedy. The sacrifices of those who fought there often went unrecognized, their contributions overshadowed by the more prominent battles of the war. Veterans of the Aleutians struggled to gain acknowledgement for their service, a struggle compounded by the remote and inhospitable nature of the battlefield itself. Efforts to memorialize the campaign have grown in recent decades, but the stories of those who served there remain relatively unknown to the broader public. The enduring legacy of the Aleutian Campaign lies in its ability to teach and inspire. It reminds us that even in the most remote and desolate corners of the world, the human spirit can prevail. The campaign's lessons in resilience, innovation, and sacrifice continue to resonate, offering valuable insights for both military and civilian contexts. As the world faces new challenges, the stories of the Aleutians serve as a reminder of what can be achieved through determination and collective effort. The windswept Aleutian Islands, once a remote and desolate battleground, now stand as silent witnesses to one of the most extraordinary chapters of World War II. What was once an obscure front, overshadowed by the grander theaters of the Pacific and Europe, holds lessons and legacies that echo far beyond the icy tundra and treacherous seas. The Aleutian Campaign proved that even the most isolated and inhospitable places could shape the course of a global conflict. For the soldiers who fought there, it was a battle not just against an enemy, but against the unrelenting forces of nature. They endured frostbite, trench foot, and relentless winds that tested their endurance as much as any firefight. Their sacrifices laid the groundwork for future victories, demonstrating the resilience and ingenuity that would become hallmarks of the Allied war effort. For the indigenous Aleuts, the war brought profound upheaval. Displaced from their ancestral lands, they endured loss and hardship in internment camps, a tragic reminder of the human cost of war. Their contributions as scouts, guides, and laborers remain a testament to their resilience and courage. The scars of displacement are still felt today, but their story is an integral part of the campaign's legacy. The lessons learned in the Aleutians about logistics, adaptability, and cooperation shaped the trajectory of the Pacific War. The challenges faced and overcome in this remote theater informed the Allied island-hopping strategy, paving the way for victories in places like Saipan, Iwo Jima, and Okinawa. These lessons continue to influence military strategy, highlighting the enduring relevance of the Aleutian Campaign. In the decades since, efforts to honor the campaign have grown, ensuring that the sacrifices of those who served are not forgotten. Monuments and memorials now stand in places like Dutch Harbor and Attu, commemorating the bravery and determination of the soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Aleut civilians who endured unimaginable challenges. Their stories remind us of the complexities of war, where triumph and tragedy are often intertwined. The Aleutian Campaign is more than a tale of military strategy. It is a story of resilience, sacrifice, and the unyielding human spirit. It reminds us that no front is too remote, no battle too small, to shape the course of history. By remembering this forgotten chapter, we honor not only the lives it touched, but also the enduring lessons it imparts. As the winds continue to howl across the barren islands, they carry with them whispers of the past, a reminder of the men and women who once stood against the elements and an unrelenting foe. Their courage, their determination, and their sacrifices endure as a testament to the resilience of the human spirit in the face of adversity.